McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.
Are we still on the trail? Is this pack getting heavier? More switchbacks? Why am I doing this?
At REI Co-op, we believe there are places within ourselves
Just a little further. You got this.
that we find only outside.
Wow. Look at the stars. This is incredible.
We have the gear, inspiration, and advice to help you get there. REI Co-op. Visit rei.com.
Hey, it's time for a new Terry's Talkin podcast. I'm David Campbell, your host. Terry Pluto is here. I have to apologize off the hop here, Terry. We were supposed to tape yesterday, Wednesday, at around noon, but someone decided to get sick. So we're battling through that, and we're taping this on Thursday afternoon. So anyway, there you go. How you doing, Terry?
Well,
You're doing better than I am.
I'm not the one who's been sick, so that's fine. And well, I'll tell you, the Cavalier fans, I've been text and calls, and they are not handling that loss very well.
Well, that was the first thing I was going to ask you. Why don't we start with the Cavaliers? You've been watching and covering the Cavs for a long time. Is that at the top of the list for you for most devastating losses that the team and the fans have absorbed over the years?
No, I think Jordan shot back in 1989 in Game 5 because that ended the season, and that was I know 57 wins doesn't sound like much compared to 66, but that was a lot of wins. And that year they won more games than the Bulls. I think they were either 5-1 or 6-0 against the Bulls in the regular season. And actually, it was a little bit like now. Mark Price missed one game, and he was playing with a hip pointer. And Larry Nance, then later on after that series, would need ankle surgery. But you just felt that team had a chance to be really special. And the remarkable thing was how the Cavs took the lead on an inbounds play with Craig Elo. It's like my favorite inbounds play. In fact, I wrote about this in my notes. You want to get the ball in bounds. This I learned from Lenny Wilkins. Here's what you do, Kenny Atkinson. You have a big guy who is athletic with good hands. And that back in the day, it was Larry Nance. Right now, it's Jared Allen. You put him about 20 to 25 feet away from the guy who is bringing the ball in bounds. And he kind of looks like he's going to do nothing, the big guy, like he's taking up space. He just, for like a half a second, he just kind of looks nowhere, and then he bolts full speed, runs towards the guy bringing the ball in. The guy throws the ball up high. The big man jumps up and catches it. Then the guy who threw the ball in runs somewhere, and it's easy to get the ball back to him, as Lenny Wilkins actually once showed myself and Bert Grafe. He had us there like pretending we were guarding him on an inbounds pass. He held the basketball on the sideline and then threw it, and both of our heads fouled the ball. I said, right there. He goes, now if I'm there, I can immediately just go in a different direction. You both lost sight of me. Even if they tell you don't lose sight of the guy bringing in the ball, it's just a natural reaction. And then therefore, that's how you get the ball in bounds. Well, the Cavs did that with 6 seconds to go. The problem was they went back to Elo, and he scored in 3 seconds. He scored too fast. So the Chicago called timeout, and they had 3 seconds to get the ball to Jordan. Of course, he made the shot. And it was really probably as quiet I've ever heard a basketball arena after a game as that.
So that's number one, and this is number two.
This is bad. This is like right up there.
Yeah.
It was probably just as quiet, but in terms of the impact, that was even more. And, in some ways, it set the tone for the two franchises, David. I mean, you grew up in Chicago, so you know what Jordan became. Jordan always said that kind of set him on his course of becoming this great, not just elite scorer, but clutch player.
Right.
And then it seemed to haunt the Cavs, who then were eliminated by Michael Jordan teams 5 times. That was the first, I believe. and it just went on from there. It was just something else.
Yeah, that was something I was thinking of during the game. One of my thoughts that crossed my head was, man, if you're a Cavs fan, one thing you have to be thankful for, and we talked about this, is like this team. This is not it for this team.
No.
Even if they lose Friday night, this is the beginning of the runway, not the end. And it's just, this is the crazy thing about sports, Terry. The Cavs did everything right during the regular season, right? In terms of resting
Hmm.
guys, keeping people healthy, not overworking them. And then sometimes you get to the most important part of the season and everything just goes wrong. And there's just not a lot you can do. I guess we could run through these stats that you had in your column. That Game 3, if the Cavs lose Game 3, it's over. I mean,
Yeah.
I think you had it in there. There's been 159 teams
Yeah.
that have gone down 0-3, and none of them have won the series. So it's pretty much win or you're done on
And the
Friday for
amazing
the
thing
Cavs.
is, even only 4 have taken it to a game 7 out of the 159.
Right,
Boy,
right.
wouldn't that be a bummer? You're down 0-3, you win the next 3, and then you lose in 7.
Yeah, that would be something. But so there
Yeah.
were. It's easy to do hindsight in a thing like this, Terry. But Kenny Atkinson was the one who brought this up about. He said we ran out of gas in
Yep.
Game 2. My only regret is not playing more guys. We shortened the rotation. Obviously, that's my sole regret. Do you agree?
Um, Really, if you look at the minutes, they were not excessive for a playoff game. Nobody played 40 minutes or anything like that. What I agree with them is that Ty Jerome was having just a miserable game. Watching him jack up 14 shots and make one. He played 28 minutes. It felt like more. And he said he needed Jerome out there to help with the ball handling. Well, I not that he's a great player, but Craig Porter Jr. and we've talked about him before over different podcasts. I think he's a poised point guard. You could put him in there. He could bring the ball up the floor. He played 4 minutes in the first half. He was 1 for 2 from the field. He had a steal, made a layup, also blocked a shot. There wasn't any turnovers or anything like that. I thought for sure he'd be back in the second half. He just didn't put him in. I mean, the knock on Porter is he's not a good outside shooter, but at that point, you just really needed somebody to help bring the ball up with for get the burden off of Donovan. But
Right.
also Max Strus does a nice job handling the ball too. He could help. So I don't know, but when Jerome's in one of those things, and we've seen the last 2 games where really he is trying to do too much, and it needs to. With Ty Jerome, you can't tell him like to really back off. That's part of who he is. You just need to sit him down and let him decompress a little bit and watch and then go with something else. But in terms of everything, I mean, 30 minutes for Dean Wade, 1 for 4. It'd be nice if he kind of looked once in a while to shoot. Jared Allen played 38. Donovan played 36. Strus played 39. Okoro played 29. I mean, Okoro, nobody's fixing to shoot, and he doesn't shoot. 29 minutes, he was 1 for 2. Sam Merrill played 26. I think maybe when he said that, it just meant perhaps putting Porter in. I hope that's where he was going with that thought.
Yeah, and I think Javonte Green got 10 minutes too, and I thought he acquitted himself pretty well. I mean, you're not going to get 20 points out of him necessarily,
No.
but there's a strategy in the playoffs, Terry. Wear the other guy's star player down.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the Ohio State Notre Dame game after the first series when Riley Leonard was basically
Yeah.
carrying the ball and just was getting hammered the whole way down the field, and they scored a touchdown. And I saw him score the touchdown. I'm like, all right, well, there's a touchdown, but that is not a sustainable offensive approach.
I do remember that, and I'm thinking, I was watching with a friend of mine who actually is a big Notre Dame fan. I go, I guess that's one way to play it, but it's not going to work.
Yeah, and it's kind of the same thing as with Donovan Mitchell the other night. Like 35 minutes, but he went to the free throw line 21 times and getting just knocked around. And I was just thinking, like, he's got to hit some threes in the next game if they're going to have a chance. I mean, I think he was 15 of 30 from the field, but he was like 1 for 7 from 3. He's got to get easier points.
Yeah, he was 2 for 18 on threes in the playoffs in this series. I wonder, he does have a calf muscle problem. that he doesn't want to talk about because the calf muscles also knocked him out of playoffs last year. And even though like he's running and jumping, I don't know if this has something to do with his balance is off on his jump shots or what, but these things are not just missing. They're like way off. And so there's something that's a problem there. I remember when Jordan was a young player and his jumper wasn't that good, he would just go to the basket time after time after time and get knocked down and get up and make the free throws. And he was so determined trying to get those kind of younger Bulls to win. I see that with Donovan. It's a very commendable trait. And he doesn't, if you watch Donovan, he doesn't point fingers. He doesn't, any of that stuff. This guy, I will not hear anything. I brought it up even long before this, that he was the second, best player in Cavs history. I will not hear anything about Kyrie or anything when it comes to number 2. It's this guy. He is the full package in terms of leadership, attitude, the way he conducts himself, and his ability to go. He's averaging 29 points in all his playoff thing. He averages 29 points against the Celtics. I mean, he could rise to the occasion in these games, but he needs a little help, and I'm not sure where that's going to come from. I don't know who's going to play or not play, and we all know that we should by now that whatever they say, like at today's practice or even tomorrow morning shoot around, we won't know for sure if any of those injured guys are playing until tomorrow night, probably about an hour before tip-off.
Yeah, I mean, if they can't play, it's because they really can't play. I mean,
I don't want to hear this. I don't want to go down this road. They're not hurt. They're not hurt. Or if Darius could jump on the bench, jump up and down on the bench, he must be able to play. I mean, I don't know any athlete with any ounce of character in him that wants to play the regular season and sit on the bench in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're kind of iffy about it and it's February and you're in the 5th game of an 8-day trip, sure. But not game 2 of the Indiana series at home when they're about, by the way, the fans have been incredible. Rick Carlisle keeps saying that, how it's the loudest building. And so really hats off to them. And the way they were just trying to cheer the fans. And Carlisle talked about how it was almost like a tidal wave of emotion and everything hit them. I mean, for 46 minutes, the Cavs played a great game. 47 minutes, they were ready to win. And, of course, when you get the NBA report on, well, thanks a lot, guys. We did win. Both of those guys were in the lane too soon. It's like, oh, Lord. David, I could see how they would miss the was it Neesmith that ran in there from seemingly out of nowhere? It's like he dropped from the roof, got the ball, and dunked it.
Right.
Because a lot of times when you're officiating, wherever, you're not watching that guy that's about 23 feet from the basket. Now, neither was Donovan Mitchell, and that was a problem because it was his job to block him out. I was standing right next to him. So he shot out of a cannon. He goes flying in there, grabs it, and dunks. But it is an official's job when there's 3 of them out there to watch the shooter at the foul line and make sure that he doesn't go into the lane too soon. He can't go in until the ball hits the rim. And so it's just that part is mind-boggling to me, how they missed on
Yeah, I mean, there's an old saying like in hockey, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And the Pacers had very little downside to not try that kind of stuff at the end of the game. And as you can see, it worked out for them in the last 2-minute report.
Right.
Terry's talking about, yeah.
Yeah, you go in, you try all that stuff, and you put the onus on the officials because actually, you know how they call that? It was back when I covered in the 80s and early 90s, and it went before that. The old let the players decide the game. We're not going to call these iffy calls. I wrote a book. It never didn't sell very much, but it's called Falling from Grace. Can the NBA be saved? And this was in the early 90s when games were in the 80 points and all kinds of stuff was going on. And I interviewed big-time officials like Earl Strom, Jack Madden, some others. And now they all denied that they favored stars. I expected that. But I said, what about the playoffs? And they admitted on the record that they just let more stuff go because they wanted to kind of keep the flow of the game. And they also admitted at the end of games, those last 30 seconds or whatever, unless it's something egregious, something really obvious, they're just not blowing the whistle. We're going to let the players decide it. Like, remember, Detroit got messed up on that. I forget who made the shot from the corner. It was Cade Cunningham or somebody. It was a clear. I mean, he got hit.
Yeah.
And they just stood there. Right, it was right in front of the official. And then right away after, oh yeah, well, we should have called it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, a lot of good it does after the game, right?
It's not like in law enforcement where, you stole the money from the bank and they pulled your SUV over and they caught you. Oh, guess what? All that money in the back, you got to take it back to the bank and you're going to jail. No, it's nothing. It's like you got a citation. You'll come to court in the year 2080 and maybe we'll talk about it. Nothing. Just nothing at all. It was just, I'm sorry. I'm done.
No, I am curious if that's the kind of call that you don't look for. I am wondering if they missed it because of what you're talking about, because they didn't want to
Yeah.
have the game swing on that, or because they just didn't see it.
Definitely on the first one, they weren't looking for it.
Mhm.
I mean, Roberta. I had my assistant Roberta, who played on the first Hiram basketball team, of women's team, and then also, back when I covered the Cavs, she would go out to eat with Lenny Wilkins and I, or Wayne Embry, and it was a whole different era back then. She went to practice with me. I mean, she knows the game well enough, so we were breaking down all the tapes and watching things, and that's like where we talked about the out of bounds play, which she remembered Lenny running those things and talking about that. And then also, it's hard to pick it up. And Neesmith just seems to come out of nowhere. You really almost have to slow the whole thing down, and you have to watch the clock. I kind of give him a pass on that one. I just do.
Yeah,
But
well, it's kind of like you're talking about with the big guy coming in for the inbound. Like
yeah,
you don't think to look back there for some guy
you
soaring
just
in like
don't.
that.
You
Yeah,
don't expect him to come in. I mean, had Dean Wade, instead of wandering farther away from the ball, had taken one step to go away from the ball and then run in towards Strus, he would have been open. And he would have been a good one to throw to too. They had two good options. So that's kind of how you break it down. What they do tonight, I don't know. I was talking to someone who said that Hunter's thumb is dislocated. It's on his shooting hand. But I mean, I guess there's some discussion on his part. Can we split it? Can we wrap it up? Can I try to go out and play? With the given being that, okay, I may not shoot very well, but I'll give it. I mean, truthfully, if I'm him, I would give that a shot, because
yeah,
that's kind of like, I can't speak to Mobley's ankle and I can't speak to Darius's foot. That would be the only one I would say of the injuries that, okay, maybe give it a shot.
yeah.
With the caveat being, look, I ain't going to be real good, but I'm out there. Those other guys, I mean, you get an ankle sprain. You remember Mobley had I'm not saying it's a high ankle sprain now. I'm also saying they all lie about injuries. You and I always have this talk about that. But Mobley did have a high ankle sprain last season when JB was there. Now, one negative about everybody being basically healthy and that, remember last year, they were always kind of filling in. Garland was hurt for, I think Mobley missed the most games. It was like 32 games he missed, and Garland and Donovan missed in the high 20s because of injuries. So JB was kind of mixing, matching, patching holes all year. And then this year, they just didn't have that. I mean, guys would miss, but it was designated games, whatever. And so this is really the first time Kenny's had to sit there and go, oh my goodness, we have three guys not playing at once. He had nothing like that.
So there is one more thing that you kind of said you would like to see, Terry, in your writings. Tristan Thompson, you think
Yeah.
could come off the bench and give them some
Yeah.
rebounding, some defense, right?
Yeah, especially if Evans not playing, just somebody knock him around a little bit. And tell you one thing, you put him on the inside of that lane on the free throws missed. If he doesn't get the ball, he's knocking somebody down.
Yeah.
I mean, now you may get a foul on that and say it's stupid, but just for a little bit, it's not like, I mean, I get fans that want to bring back, well, if they had a guy like Rick Mahorn or Kendrick Perkins or something, the problem with the big brute that would push people around is the game's too fast. The game is too fast. And when they talk about Draymond Green, he can move. And he is a highly skilled passer. and knows the game. He just is not out there knocking people around. And that is what makes him valuable and different in the modern game. But Tristan's actually, he's got still has some little athleticism back. We've seen him in some of the games where he played. I mean, he's sort of a rebounding machine. I mean, you could try that. I mean, I don't think you put Tristan Thompson in the game for 5 minutes, he loses the game for you. I don't believe that.
No, not at all. All right, some good ideas there, Terry, and we will see. Anything else on the Cavs you want to get into?
Just that I would like to see them how they're going to handle this rush in Indiana, because those fans are going to be hanging from the ceiling screaming. Indiana, Carlisle was very complimentary to both cities. He loved it. You could tell he said he even though he known for the Celtics and stuff, he's coached in the Midwest almost his whole career as a head coach, other than Dallas. I mean, in Detroit, he's at Indiana twice. He played for the Celtics. I mean, he's been around. He went to the University of Virginia. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But he just is kind of just a normal guy. I mean, I've listened to him talk about this stuff, and you could just tell this man has won 996 NBA games. There isn't much coming down the pike that's going to surprise him. He was funny. He goes, we've never been called this physical, brutish team. He was like, then he just kind of shrugged. It's like, well, where did that come from? Oh, I will say, Kenny needs to get off of this thing of
the officiating.
Yeah, you had your say. You stood up for your guys, but you don't. If you keep dwelling on it, then all of a sudden, that it would be.
It becomes an excuse, right?
Yeah,
it's
right. It's in their head. Play through it. I mean, he kept saying, we couldn't get the ball in because they're holding and grabbing. And Kenny, your out of bounds plays, who actually been pretty good this year, were not when you needed them. I don't know if there had to do with the combination of players on the floor or what, but they were not. Period.
Yeah, and you can bet they've been working on those because
I'm sure they'll sit there with the tape and
you
go.
See how that goes. You have to call timeouts in the second and third quarter to get the ball in, and pretty soon you have none left, and can't advance the ball. You can't challenge. It all kind of builds. So, all right. Well, Game 3, pivotal Game 3, as we've been talking about, is going to be on Friday night in Indianapolis at 7:30, and Game 4 is Sunday at 8. Also in Indianapolis, we will see if there is a Game 5. So,
one last. I do have something more, and this is the same thing. Halliburton gets the rebound. He dribbles out the 3-point line, and I looked at this about 4 times. He's out there. He's got Ty Jerome on him. He is salivating, knowing I will be able to get a shot off again. Strus is about 8 feet away. He's sort of half guarding somebody on the wing, but half over there towards Halliburton, and he's nowhere. All you got to do, Max, I know they couldn't call timeout, is go help Jerome. If Halliburton throws the ball to your guy and he makes the winning shot, fine. I mean, how many times has Ty or Halliburton got to beat somebody?
Before
it's the
they
same
start
way.
double teaming him,
Yeah, in the same way, Boston keeps letting Brunson. How many times are you going to let this guy in the clutch? Run 2 guys at him, and if he leaves somebody open, fine. If he forces a bad shot and makes it, but if he's out there 1-on-1, I mean, who are you going to bet on?
Well, it goes back to the Jordan thing. How many times did we hear Cavs fans back then saying, why don't you double team him?
And Lenny wouldn't do it. It drove us all nuts. It was almost like a principle with him. I mean, he is a Hall of Fame coach. I consider him a friend. A long time ago, Lenny asked me to write his autobiography. It's a book called Unguarded. You could, it's an older one, it's out of print, but it's really a great read. But he just was not going to do it. And, that it cost them time and time again. But frankly, the Bulls, as you know, that team, they were so great, I don't think it would have mattered, but you just would have felt better.
Yeah, somebody else beat you other than Jordan.
It's like in baseball when a guy just keeps hitting you, walk him. If you could walk him, walk him. Let somebody else beat you.
That'll do it on the Cavs. We'll see how they do this weekend. You want to take a break here?
Sounds good to me.
All right, we will do that when we come back. We're going to get into the Browns quarterbacks and how this is all going to work. So we'll get into that and more when we return on Terry's Talkin'.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority is using Google AI to create smarter tolling systems and improve traffic flow for Texans. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation. Membership means more with American Express Business Gold. Earn 4 times membership rewards points in your top 2 eligible spending categories every month, including eligible U.S. advertising purchases and select media, and U.S. purchases at restaurants, including takeout and delivery. What are you waiting for? Get the card that flexes with your spending every month. Terms and points cap apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-gold. Amex Business Gold Card. Built for business by American Express.
Okay, we're back on Terry's Talkin'. A quick plug for Terry's weekly newsletter. Comes out every Wednesday at noon. You get all kinds of good inside stuff in there, stories of yesteryear, contract breakdowns, whatever's on Terry's mind. You can sign up. Go to cleveland.com/Pluto. There's a blue bar at the top of that page, and you can subscribe there. I think you get 2 weeks for free, so check it out.
Before
yes.
we begin,
Yes.
here's how I want to begin on the Browns.
All right.
Now that I'm come back to earth after they traded my guy Travis Hunter, I didn't handle that like a man. And as I mentioned in my newsletter, making it even worse, I had this whole column all set on them taking Travis Hunter, all set, ready to go. Somewhere still in the bowels of the cleveland.com computer system, that column is there. Probably should get rid of it so somebody doesn't push the button. But within 1 minute of them announcing that, I was going to push the button, and it was a hallelujah column. Well, so on top of it, 100, number 2, it messed up my day as a writer, so I was grumpy about all of that. But all right, here's what we've got. If you start breaking down the trade so far,
all right, let's do it.
Got all the parts except one. So the first pick, they got number 5. Go ahead.
Mason Graham, Michigan defensive lineman.
I always leave linemen to you.
And, you want to know my take on the pick?
Yeah.
I think what I've been saying, I think this guy, I'm not saying he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's a guy like Joe Thomas or Joel Bitonio that you can put in that defensive line and leave there for 10 years, and he's going to be a good, solid, productive, dependable player. I think he's maybe Pro Bowl caliber.
I got it. I'm glad you went there, David Campbell, because I asked myself this question and I could not come up with the answer. I had looked it up. The last Browns defensive tackle to make a Pro Bowl was?
Wow. I don't know the answer to that. Who is it?
Michael Dean Perry, 1994.
I was going to say him, but I'm like, there has to have been somebody since then.
No, there has not.
Oh, man.
And there isn't anybody that jumps to mind that maybe should have been, at least not in my mind. All right, so that was it. And then the next pick was Quinshon Judkins.
So the Browns love his dependability, his rugged approach to running. They took him at 36 overall, and I think Dan Lobby, our colleague, has put up a depth chart as it stands, and he's got Quinshon Judkins as the starting running back right now, which I think makes total sense because they're going to give him the ball and give it to him a lot. Is that what you see?
Yeah, I think it's a really good pick. If they had took Henderson from Ohio State, I'd have been fine either way. I like them both. Now, this is the interesting part. See, I had it messed up. I had to go back and look at the other pick. I thought it was one of those picks that was used to get Sanders. It's not. It was pick number 126.
Right.
And that
which was Dylan Sampson.
Yeah.
Running back Tennessee.
Okay. Now I'm going to take this part, the 2 running backs thing.
All right, go.
All right. I thought it was a great sign because it's another indication they're going back to what worked. I'll take the 2 running backs. You got the leading running back in the SEC, and you got Judkins, who was number 2 in rushing the SEC 2 years ago. So both of those guys excelled in the SEC. Then Judkins, who scored, I think it was 14 touchdowns for Ohio State. If they'd have given him the ball enough, he probably would have led the Big Ten in rushing, but they had some of the talent, they could divide it up. And this way, you have 2 guys. If one gets hurt, one could help on special teams, whatever it is. I want them run the ball more. I mean, the most amazing stat of last year and alarming remains that the Browns led the NFL in pass attempts last year. But you know what it did? It got them 15 points a game, which is the lowest in the NFL.
Well, and the other thing, when you don't score early and you're behind a lot, you have to throw a lot too. So
Yeah,
that
but
was part
if
of it.
you
But
want,
the general
then you throw
approach
it to
was,
the other team.
yeah. But yeah, the general approach was way too pass
But
heavy.
also, well, you junked your blocking scheme. Remember that. They junked the zone blocking. And so it was not even set up. Granted, to your point, they were actually set up to throw the ball a lot. That was the plan. I mean, Ken Dorsey, left to throw it. The scheme was set up to throw it. They threw it and they threw up. I mean, that was basically it. And so now, again, another thing. What I've liked about what they've done so far is it really was an admission of how wrong they were in 24. From they got rid of Dorsey. They promoted Tommy Rees from within as offensive coordinator. Bring in a guy Bloomberg, who Bloomgren, I believe his last name is, from Rice. He's a zone blocking guy. Worked with Callahan. They went to the type of quarterbacks that should work in this system with the play action, and they got young running backs all over the place. I'm good with this. Now, if they'd have taken a wide receiver with that 126 or offensive lineman, I'd have been good with that also. But I'm not going to second guess them when I'm demanding more of a running attack, and they felt they had a chance to bring in two elite running backs. I'm good. What about you?
No, I agree. And we've talked. This is like a total reset, right? It's like we're going to start fresh, go back to what we know, which is play action, running game with play action off of it.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you don't have running backs. And so now they have two, and we'll see where it goes. So yeah, we go ahead.
And you still have the kid from Cincinnati, the running back,
Jerome Ford,
who they could use on special teams. I always thought he was a decent return guy.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a good guy to have around. I think he averaged 5.4 yards a carry last season. When you look at it, and 104 carries, so he's a good guy to have in your locker room. We do have a Nick Chubb email here, Terry. We can go into from Marty Stevenson. Marty's a listener from Strongsville, and he says, "Hey Terry and Dave, don't know if you and Terry did something similar already, but I think Nick Chubb deserves at least the third running back spot on the roster for all he's done for the Browns and what he means to us, even if he might not be the third best running back, and even if he can't return kicks. We love him and he loves us. Can't the Browns do this one for the fans and probably for the locker room as well?" What do you think of that?
It's a tough thing because here's the hard part for Chubb. Do you want to come in like that, where you're really, as he said, the third running back and no shot to start at a play? Secondly, nobody knows the medical more than the Browns on Chubb. And I really believe early after the season, not long after the season ended, the decision was made, we don't want to bring Chubb in and cut him, and we're afraid that's what we'll have to do. And let him start fresh. And that's when they did. And I get that part. Chubb's my favorite player on the Browns. So I mean this is a tough one. But it's where they are, and I think they wanted young running backs. This is a whole, as you said, a reset. And I mean, I looked at Chubb, averaged 3.1 yards per carry. He carried the ball 100 times. And his longest run was 19. He just didn't look the same. Now I will say this though. Oftentimes after a major knee surgery, just like after a major arm surgery for a pitcher, you don't get the full data on how a guy's going to be till the following season when he has another year to rehab and everything else. That said, if I were a team, weren't the Bears your team growing up?
Yeah.
Aren't you looking for a running back? Maybe.
I
don't know. Somebody like that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, a team that, I got one, but I could use two, and then I could bring in a guy that I know will kind of, lead the locker room, that kind of stuff. Chubb would be a really good gamble because you can get him cheap. in there. But I really believe that. By the way, I forgot on the trade. I looked this up. I was just curious. What did what did the Jaguars do with the other two picks? Because there's pick 104 and 200 in there. I'm going to probably mess this guy's name up. With the 104th pick in the NFL draft, the Jaguars take Virginia Tech running back Bashul Tutin, Bhayshul Tutin, who ran at 4.32 in the 40 and is kind of fumble prone but also explosive. And with the number 200 pick in the NFL draft, the Jaguars took. This is kind of a cool pick. Navy safety Raoun Lane. Thought that was, and he's supposed to be an elite special teams guy. So there's two other guys in this trade besides Travis Hunter. So there they are, and then we'll wait on 26. I mean, the 26th pick is what made the deal work for Cleveland. But it's kind of fun. So you got a defensive tackle and two running backs and a player to come. And they got Hunter and the safety and the running back from Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and just go back to the Chubb thing real quick, Terry. The Browns are not in a position where they can do that right now. What Marty was talking about, like if you're a winning team and maybe you have a spot to fill, maybe you bring back somebody like Nick Chubb. But I think you're right. They need to get younger and faster and more breakaway speed.
Chubb doesn't want to be a mascot.
He doesn't. You're exactly right.
He is not ready to be a running backs coach. He's not ready to be Austin Hedges. Okay, you know what? Because in his mind, he probably still sees himself as close to the level he was before, even though the film certainly didn't look like it. And so that's why he's leaping over buildings and all these other things he's putting out there. Because I mean, that's the old thing. If anybody could do it, which is why if I were a team looking for another running back, he's coming in. Because really, say he goes to the Bears or goes to somebody else and they cut him, okay, they don't have an emotional attachment to Chubb. It's just
yeah, I mean, it might be a situation like we've seen with Kareem Hunt the last couple of years where the training camp's going on, somebody gets hurt, team's really down on running backs, and let's bring in Nick Chubb. We know what we're getting, and it might take a while, but he's gonna land.
Find out. Yeah, it costs you nothing. But here, I just think they really wanted to just, like you said, reset. 4 new quarterbacks. I know Flacco was here before, but it's 4 new quarterbacks and 2 new running backs.
All right, well, let's talk about the quarterbacks, Terry. I was mentioning Dan Lobby's depth chart, and
yes,
the quarterbacks are hard to parse out, but he's got Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett as the starters.
No, you got to pick one.
All right, well, he's got as the backup, he's got Flacco, Dylan Gabriel, and/or Pickett, and he's got on the bubble is Shedeur Sanders and unavailable Deshaun Watson because of the injury. So, all right, well, let's pick a starter. If you think there's going to be a starter to be on the depth chart, who is it right now to you, Terry?
I would probably, unless he had a bad training camp, I would go with Pickett.
I would too.
Yeah, I want to see what you got there.
So why?
Because maybe he is a reclamation project, maybe he isn't. But I don't know exactly what he is. I'm not wild about him, but it's like they see something in him. And I just think about what Kevin Stefanski did with Case Keenum. Even that was in Minnesota. He went 14-3 with Keenum when he had 2 quarterbacks right in front of him, Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Bradford. Then what he did with Jacoby Brissett here. Brissett's best year by far was here, and he would throw an interception here or there. The Browns were 10th in scoring in those 11 games started by Jacoby Brissett. The problem back in that year in 22 is the defense was horrible. So, if he could squeeze some stuff out of those guys, I think he could squeeze some out of Kenny Pickett if it's there. If not, you have Joe. Joe's going to – I'll take Joe for a couple of games. You're going to get a pro performance out of him. And then you have your 2 rookies.
Yeah, and I agree on the Pickett thing. The biggest mystery in that quarterback right now is how good is Kenny Pickett and can he work in the system? So that needs to be the most answered question that you want from training camp preseason and the season is like, is Kenny Pickett, and if Kenny Pickett works out and you want to keep him, then that's great. And if not, then you can go to plan B or
I mean,
C
you
or
don't
D or
you don't
whatever.
have to play Flacco at all in the preseason.
Yeah.
I mean, if you
And
want to, fine.
you're
You
not
don't
going to
have
learn
to.
anything about Joe Flacco at
No,
this point, right? Like,
he's 40. I mean, this
yeah,
is what
they've
you
seen
get.
it all. So
Yeah, so you get Kenny acclimated to the new team, and then you get the kids in there and see what they do.
all right, we do have Kenny Pickett related question here from
Yes.
Tony DeLuca from Granville, Ohio. He says, "Hey Terry, just suppose Kenny Pickett has a Sam Darnold type year.
Sure.
Would the Browns let him go after seeing the playoffs and maybe a 14-win season? By the
No.
way, the Browns have not seen 14 wins since
No.
1948.
No, they're not going to let him go.
That'd be a great problem to have for
That
them,
would
wouldn't it?
be an excellent problem to have. No, they
Yeah.
won't.
They will come to some kind of
Because
arrangement. There's going to be some money
remember,
laid out.
Dylan Gabriel's a 3rd-round pick. Shadur Sanders is a 5th-round pick. They are on cheap rookie contracts, so they would not let him go. Now, they might. I'm not saying if he went all the way through, but early this season, if things aren't going well, they might trade Pickett. People say Flacco. I don't think get anything for Flacco. He's been out there. You might trade Pickett to get one of those low picks back, and then you let whatever kid you want to play. I mean, right now, if you go by how they were drafted, is Dylan Gabriel, and it's fascinating to me to see what they're doing, and it'd be interesting to watch Stefanski handle this. And the Sanders thing, with all the hype and everything else, is going to be dominating a lot of the questions. But when it comes to who's getting snaps, all these things, even when they play don't they have 2 of those kind of scrimmages with different teams coming up?
Yes, I'm not sure the details have come out yet, but they usually do that.
I think they have 2 scheduled, I heard. And who plays a lot in those?
Yeah, those guys. And I don't think it can be overestimated. Either one. The fact that they picked Dylan Gabriel as high as they did tells you how much they like him.
They like him.
And they're going to give him a lot of opportunity to show what he can do and to succeed here. Because that's the guy they really honed in on. And they picked him earlier than a lot of people thought he would go. And they like him. And when you like a young quarterback, you're going to do everything you can to make sure it works out and give him every opportunity.
Our Lance, our cleveland.com,
Lance Reisland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, former coach at Garfield Heights. Lance, went through the tape, and it was very similar to his way he regards Gabriel to what Dane Brugler, who's my favorite draft analyst is, that a smart guy fit, and they both think he fits what Stefanski wants to do also. Remember, you're talking about a 3rd-round pick. You're not talking about a 1st-round pick. Now, has Lance broken down Shadur Sanders yet?
Yes, he has.
What did he say? Because I was looking.
A lot of what we were talking about, Terry, about bailing out in the pocket and going backward instead of stepping up. That was the biggest thing that Lance found, was that he's got to take that step up into the pocket and trust the offensive line so he can deliver the ball on time. Greg
Cosell, who works for NFL Films, I believe he's the nephew of Howard Cosell. There's a relation. He's not a son, but he's done this forever. He's considered kind of a quarterback guru. He liked Dylan Gabriel. He said, how smart he is. He said, even though he's small, he does a pretty good job of creating passing angles. He's played 64 games. I like now how a lot of the analytics types or whatever are realizing the import of playing a lot of games in college at the quarterback position. Before, they were always just kind of on age. The younger the better we get them. Tim Couch had played, I think, 24 starts. He had played 2 years at Kentucky, 1 year for Richardson from the Colts. You look at a lot of those guys, and they just don't do real well when they've only played maybe a year or even 2. And so as a starter now, and just really, I just think that position is so hard that's one of those things that come in. Now, Shadur's got a lot of starts too. He's got 4 years of starts. I don't know. He's got 40-something. So that's a positive for him.
All right. Do you want to talk about the offensive line real quick?
Sure.
So, well, let's run through this real quick. I was talking about Dan Lobby's depth chart on cleveland.com/Browns. Let's run through the starters that he has. He's got DeJuan Jones at left tackle right now, Joel Bitonio at left guard, Ethan Posich at center, Wyatt Teller at right guard, and Jack Conklin at right tackle. And the backups he has right now are Tevin Jenkins, Cornelius Lucas, Luke Whippler, and Zach Zinter as the backups. So were you surprised they didn't draft any offensive linemen? And how do you feel about the offensive line right now?
If it's fantasy football where nobody gets hurt, I feel fine. I don't mean to be sarcastic, but you look at that. DeJuan's had at least one knee surgery, and he's had some other problems. Conklin cannot get through a season the last couple of years. Bitonio's played a ton of games. Teller had a problem like 2 years ago. I think he had the dreaded calf muscles thing. Posich's been pretty healthy, and I don't like the backups. I guess maybe Zinter can play, maybe he can't. We'll have to see. But the other guys are just, I don't know. Whippler, didn't he get hurt right away last year? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Tevin Jenkins has a lot of starts under his belt. I know he was with the Bears, but again, like you said, Terry, we've seen all of these offensive linemen.
Too many surgeries up there. Too many surgeries.
There's a lot.
I don't feel good about it because of the injury factor there.
All right. Well, the Browns have rookie minicamp going on this weekend. It starts tomorrow on Friday, and we'll be running through the weekend, and we'll be having full coverage at cleveland.com/Browns. So, all right, Terry, on to the Guardians.
I got a player. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
C.J. Cephas. Now, keep an eye on that. You may have heard of him, but here's why this is significant. I was talking to a top person with the Guardians today, and Cephas is hitting. Right now, he's hitting 364. He bounced between AA, just went up to AAA. First baseman, kind of a smaller guy, is a third-round pick. But here is the story: they're moving him to the outfield. They think he can hit, and they know they've got a problem out there. So they are looking at that. Last year between A and AA, he hit 291, 904 OPS with 17 homers. This year between AA and AAA, he's hitting like 340, a couple of homers, and a OPS over 1,000. It was 1,066. This is only his second really full year in baseball. He was in like the rookie league the year before that. So he's come quick and he's hit. And they are putting him in the outfield. And when I hear stuff like that, I just like I heard about some of these
Will
other
Wilson. Yeah.
Will Wilson. I perk up. Especially when I'm talking to one of my top people with the Guardians and they offer something. I said, oh, okay.
So is this a thing where it could happen soon, Terry, or are we talking a week, a month?
No, a month or two. Yeah, see how he is out there, and how look, they're invested in Nolan Jones. They're gonna go longer with this. They just are. Nolan hitting his 160 something or other, 163, 589 OPS. Yeah. Okay.
But we've seen, like, when we get to the end of May, the Nolan Jones experiment might be running.
Yeah, a lot of stuff can happen.
That's when we see guys getting called up, maybe some
That's what
smaller trades being made, right? Like they're going to adjust.
Yeah, you'll flop Brennan and Nolan Jones, for example. Brennan's hitting 308, but unfortunately, against lefties, he's kind of hopeless. And it's been that way his whole career. He's hitting 174 against lefties, but he could certainly flip with Nolan Jones. Interesting. Watch what they do with Rocchio, because he's hitting 165. He's like 4 for 41, and his defense is just, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know what happened to this guy, but they are really, I think, set to have Gabriel Arias take over at short. And then whether you're going to play Schneemann there for a while. Well, he's played a lot of outfield. Angel Martinez is an option at second base also. So they're. I mean, the easy thing would have been, because they were high on him, and I did run this past my source, and he said, yeah, we might have been ready to do that when Juan Brito was off to a fast start in AAA. And so the easy thing would have been to flop Brito and Rocchio. Brito takes over at second. You got Arias at short. You play ball. And let Rocchio try to pull himself together in AAA. Because I think right now, sitting on the bench at length for him isn't going to help his situation either.
Yeah, and it's so weird because, I mean, coming to the season, Terry, everybody, including us, was like, oh, we're really excited to see Rocchio after his great playoff.
Yeah.
And just the clutch hits he had, and now how he was just crushing the ball, and everybody was concerned about Arias being able to come in.
And that's how it just goes to show you, Arias has just continued to really been just a revelation. I mean, he just has. And now Brito was hitting, this is a tough one for me, 291, 897 OPS when he broke his thumb sliding into a base. But you look at the rest, Kafis, right now, he is at AAA. Was hitting 364 at Akron. He's hitting 333 at AAA. He just went up. He's only had 24 at bats, but we'll see. We'll see what he does. And I just really believe that you're going to see, like you said, they'll make some moves. I don't know what to make of Jonathan Rodriguez. I mean, he's hitting 346. He's got 3 homers. Is he a guy that's just sort of a AAA guy or what? I know this. They were very when it came to Arias, they didn't want to just kind of let him go like they let go of Nolan Jones a couple of years ago and Will Benson, and see those guys go and have decent years somewhere else. So that's how it stands. But watch Kafis, the outfield, see how that works. And that could be the next move in, say, a month or something like that.
All right, and so you mentioned Schneemann, Terry. It's really interesting. The guys that I think the Guardians were kind of banking on to get off to a fast start maybe haven't, and some of the guys that they weren't expecting a lot from are really coming through in the clutch. And Schneemann has just had some huge hits in the last week to win some games. And what have you seen from him so far?
He looked like this in spring training a couple of years ago, but it was spring training. He looked like this at AAA, but at that point he was like a 26-year-old playing in AAA, and he should look pretty good. So is he a guy that just kind of finding his way, because this is really his first full season in the big leagues? I mean, that's a possibility. He's hitting 286, 938 OPS. I mean, they love him because he can play second. He can play a okay second base. He can play kind of I don't like him at short, but he can stand out there. He's okay in the outfield, not great. And he just just kind of fits their philosophy of moving guys around. And so that's that's something there. By the way, I'm going to mention this. It goes back to the Cavs. It was a stat I had that I meant to mention. Who do you think in this series has taken more free throws, the Pacers or the Cavs?
I'm going to say the Cavs.
Yeah. They've taken 53. Pacers have taken 44. So the only reason Kenny is complaining about the rough play or whatever, well, there's 2 of them. One is because of injuries that came, and 2 is because he's losing.
And the Mobley thing is just
it's a killer.
That's just killing them.
It is. I mean, it's hard. But so that's the minor league report. And then pitching wise, my guy who I like quite a bit, I did check on him, Parker Messick, and he's doing very well. They think that he has a chance to come up pretty quickly. And also 2 relievers are healthy, Franco Ullman and also Nick Enright. They both are coming off arm injuries. That front office likes them both. They're relievers. And they just think, yeah, Messick, by the way, 27 innings, 39 strikeouts, and an ERA of 3.25. So those are a couple of guys that are there. Nick Hazy, I like some too, but I like Messick better. His ERA is 4.84. And we'll see, but they've got stuff coming.
All right, well, we need to talk about Jose Ramirez for a minute, but
Yeah.
before we do, we do have an email here from Justin Armstrong. Justin's a listener and longtime listener, and he says, hey, guys, I realize David Fry's return could still be more than a month away, but I'm eager to hear your thoughts on how he will fit into the Guardians lineup. We all know Fry's impact on last year's Guardians team, so I won't dwell on that. However, I keep wondering if the returning all-star and playoff hero will be limited to occasional pinch hitting off the bench if he can't play the field. Is there a way to keep Manzardo, Santana, and Fry in the lineup that I'm missing, or is that just wishful thinking until next year when Fry is fully recovered? Also, Fry is a young, tough-as-nails Texan. If it's okay for him to swing a bat and run the bases, it's hard to imagine why he couldn't play a bit of right field. Come on.
Well,
Thanks. I look forward to the
that
show
might
every week.
actually be one of the discussions they have. Can he play some outfield? Because he's probably going to hit, assuming this thing does not impact his swing. But last year, he was hitting with basically a torn the ulnar nerve thing in his elbow. The one thing you won't be able to do is catch. See, remember, he was not a bad catcher. We forgot all about that. First base, you've got Santana. I don't know. I guess I always kind of wondered if Mazzardo could play the outfield, but I guess the answer must be no, because these guys are never afraid to throw an extra position at somebody, and they have not talked about that or really considered that.
So it is a little tricky then, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if he definitely can't play the field at all, then you got to figure out what you could do. I mean, you certainly could platoon he and Manzardo. That's one way to go. But generally, something happens to somebody. I know Carlos Santana never gets hurt, but Carlos Santana is older than I am, so I guess one of these days it may happen. By the way, he's starting to hit. The weather's warming up, and so's Carlos.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. Do you see a difference at first base defensively with him there?
As opposed to Manzardo?
No.
Or just in general?
Or Josh Naylor, too.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's always kind of been light on his feet over there, and being a catcher, you got to play on the balls of your feet. And I mean, he moved years ago now, but I think he still has a little bit of that catcher kind of activity, the agility in him. So yeah, I think it's been fine, right?
Oh yeah, he's good. I remember Francona telling us about when he first moved him there, and he thought he wasn't working hard enough defensively, and he said he really got lit into Carlos, and he said he responded. It's like Carlos just thought, well, if I was a catcher, I'll be fine at first, and no, the things like having some pretty good hands and that help you, but you got to really learn this position, and he did. I mean, that's why Carlos has played for 100 years. You challenge him, you explain why it is. His heart's in the right place, and so here we go. But that's helped them. I hadn't really thought about Fry. It's an interesting question there. But the nice thing is, you've got him, and if you've got to wait a while and let that thing heal, let's see how it impacts. But I mean, the tough thing about him hurting that arm, because it would have been nice to have him, as an extra catcher or as an outfielder, because he moves pretty well out there. And now this will be another thing too. Lane Thomas eventually is going to come back from, what does he got, a wrist, or I forgot what it is. But do you play him in center, or do you play Martinez in center? Because I think Martinez has been pretty good in center.
Yeah, a lot of decisions to be made.
Yeah,
I felt, man, the Guardians sent out a release last week and it had the list of everybody who's hurt in the organization and an update on every single
yeah.
guy, and it just went on and on and on with all the people who are battling this and that and coming back on
Yeah,
rehab.
because
So,
Thomas is not rehabbing at Columbus or anything yet. He's still out.
right.
So that's down the line. But you look at how Schneeman's come through, Martinez has come through to help them. That's been the kind of stuff that you really need. And I was talking to another top executive, and they look at the Guardians. This is almost like a repeat of last year. How are they winning all these games? They're pitching. We had some really good stats. Joe Noga and Paul Hoynes, I think it was on their podcast or whatever, on the starting pitching. It's like, oh my goodness, the numbers were dreadful. Aren't the starters like walking the most guys in baseball or something? Or
Yeah, and the fact that they're 22-15 and only a game and a half out, like it's like how are they doing it? They haven't hit their stride yet, and they're still right in the mix. So.
Well, the Tigers and the Royals and the Guardians are have 3 of the top 4 records in the American League.
Yeah. All right, so we should talk about Jose for a minute here, right, Terry?
Yes.
Jose Ramirez drove in a run last Thursday with an RBI single against Minnesota in the 10th inning, and then he stole second base. It was his 250th career steal, and he also has 250 home runs, and that is a pretty impressive accomplishment in the annals of Major League Baseball. He's the first player in Guardians franchise history to go 250, 250.
Yeah.
He's the 24th player in Major League history to do that, 250, 250, and he's the only third baseman to have done 250 and 250, and they measure that by having played 75% of your career games at third base. Pretty incredible accomplishment and noteworthy.
Well, I've often told the story of Roberta finding Steve Kwan after watching Class A, pops into a spring training game out of nowhere. Who is he? Well, right, it could finally be told my guy was Jose Ramirez. Granted, my guy also was Owen Miller and some other misses, but it was in, I had it in the story, I forgot what year it was, 2013 or something, 14. I'm watching a spring game with Mark Shapiro at the time. And in the 5th inning, these guys come into the game from the minor league camp. And Lindor goes over to play short. And I'm like, oh, I know who he is. Oh, that's great or whatever. And then this little guy, and that's all I noticed, is at second base. And I didn't really notice it. Then he gets a base hit right away, and I think he stole a base. And then Lindor, and he turned a double play, and I'm over to Shapiro. Who is this guy? He goes, Jose Ramirez. And I just stared at him. I meant nothing. He goes, look at his stats at Lake County last year. And, of course, I looked it up. He had 350 or something like that. And he goes, he's got a chance to be special. And it's like, how he looked. Jose, after he retires in the Hall of Fame, nobody even believed he played professional baseball, much less just looking at him physically. Now, he was much thinner back then. So then right away, I started following him. And, I didn't know he was going to end up being Jose Ramirez, but I mean, right away, it was kind of like Kwan. You watch those 5 or 6 innings of that, you see where he had a chance kind of show different skills. You go, this guy's got a chance playing the big leagues for a while. I mean, you could just see that. And remember, we're talking about guys out of A-ball. That's not easy to see that, but I'm not saying I'm that smart. I'm saying what it just showed.
Oh yeah, and right after that, Terry, 2013, I was just looking here. He did play in 15 games that year. He was 20 years old and had 12 at bats.
Right, and that was the spring of 13. So Tito's watching him. He has a pretty good year at Akron, and then Tito wanted a guy to play multiple positions in pinch run for September because remember they were in the pennant race then, the playoff race, and they brought him up at the age of 20 or whatever he was. And then he went back to the minors in 2014 and, it took a while for him to get going. But once he got going, oh my goodness. I mean, he's going to go to Cooperstown. He's going to take that base with him.
Yep. He was carrying around like a
little leaguer. I just love that.
Yeah.
He's got such a pure baseball heart. How about that he gets hit in the back of the neck with the throw? He stumbles into first base. He looks like he's shot. He's down. He's dead. And now I'm not impugning anyone else, but Jose, remember, played like 3 months, a couple of years with a broken bone in his hand back in 2000, whatever year that was. Might have been 22, or I don't remember when it was. But he turned around and he missed a game. That was it. Back in there.
Yeah, never wants anybody to know when he's hurt because he
No,
wants
he
to
just
play
yeah,
every
because
day.
it took forever for them to find out. They just thought finally something was wrong. Kept saying his hand was fine. Finally, they went and MRI'd this thing, and they discovered this small bone in his hand. It wasn't a hamate; it was something else. He had broke like a month or 6 weeks earlier, and like, well, yeah, like you learn. But this guy is just incredible. And the other thing, the physical, just looking at him to say, this is a Hall of Famer. Of course, it's like he reminds me a little bit of Kirby Puckett in that regard, who was a
Same
smaller
build.
sparkle,
Yeah.
faster than you think, hit for more power than you would think. And Puckett was an outfielder. I believe he won Gold Gloves too, but just that there's something about a player like that it gets me really excited as a baseball purist.
Yeah, and it's one of those guys where you just have to appreciate every day you can watch him play when you go out
Mm-hmm.
to the park or watch on TV. So, all right, we good on the Guardians here,
Yes,
Terry?
that's it.
All right. Hey, real quick, I want to mention if you want to hit us with a question, comment, or anything else on your mind, you can email us at sports@cleveland.com, and we'll try and get it on an upcoming podcast. I have a lot of really good emails that I was not able to get to today because of being sick and everything, but I'm going to try and get back into some of those. We'll see if we can load up on emails next week. We do have one here from our longtime listener, Elia Friedman. And Elia says, hey, by the way, guys, listen to this week's podcast, a book recommendation for you and Terry, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Not a normal read for either of you, given what you both normally reference, but I think you will see a lot of what the Cavs and Guardians are doing right in that book. I manage people and find that by building the right team with the right attitude, my teams can outperform other teams around me. Keep up the great work. Thanks for that, Elia. Yeah, this is I think he's done a lot of TED Talks, this Patrick Lencioni,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of he talks about the pyramid of I think trust is at the bottom and then it builds its way up. But it's a good book if you're interested in leadership or management. I haven't read it, but I am familiar with it, and check it out. Thanks for
I
that,
mean,
Elia.
it's a classic book, but I do think I think it's what, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Right. The Stephen Covey book.
Covey, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, one of my favorites in there of that thing, and I bet Lencioni's probably got stuff like this, is when you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else.
Mm.
And that always is like, okay, now if I say yes to do this, then I might actually be saying no to Roberta on this. And that might be a bad no there. And so it kind of it's a clarifying thing for me. When you say yes to something, you say no to something else.
All right. Well, thanks, Elia, for that note on that book.
Yep.
And one thing I love about our listeners is they always are thinking creatively
Mm-hmm.
about how things can be done differently. This next one is from Will McCrone from Fairview Park, and we'll close with Will's email. He says, hey, Terry and Dave, I recently read and enjoyed Terry and Earl Weaver's book, Weaver on Strategy. And one of Earl's laws, number 7, is it's easier to find 4 good starters than 5. And it got me thinking. With the ongoing arm injury escalation in the game, would a forward-thinking organization ever consider going to a 4-man rotation? They could coach their starting pitchers to focus on good control and changing speeds rather than the maximum velocity training that is hurting so many guys' arms. The starters would then be able to pitch at maybe 85-90% of their maximum effort, but on shorter rest. The bullpen would more or less be coached the same as it is now, with high velocity and crafty breaking ball specialists. It would open up another roster spot for added late game flexibility in the lineup. That could lead to some really exciting baseball with more offensive options and extra health protection for your most precious asset, starting pitching. You'd also carry better pitching depth in the minors with fewer rotation spots at the big league level. It'll probably never happen, but I'd love to see what it might look like if it did. Anyway, big fan of the podcast. It's a weekly highlight of my week. Thank you both for what you do. Thanks for the kind words, Will. Interesting idea there, Terry. What do you think?
The Giants are trying something similar to this in the minors. Not so much for starters, but having their pitchers pitch longer. There was a long story in the Wall Street Journal about a month ago about that. And they're saying, look, it seems like the more we limit how many innings they pitch, the more Tommy John surgeries they're having. So what are we really doing here? And so they're trying to see if they could build these arms up with strength. Let's go with the old Bob Feller thing. You don't have a strong arm because you don't throw enough. Well, other muscles, you work them. And as opposed to throwing weighted balls and all this other stuff, actually throwing regular baseballs. But more. And maybe also it begins to then get into Ilya's mindset of you don't have to throw 96 on every pitch. I always tell that story about Leo Mazzoni and Jarrett Wright, who told me about the Braves. How fast can you hit that pitch on the low outside corner, that fastball right there? How fast? Put that thing right there. And that is where you build off of. Once in a while you can amp it up and try to fire one at the letters at 96. But no, throw that 92 thing right there. And it worked for the Braves for years and that. So that is the one countercultural thing. If you could look that up, I would Google like Giants pitchings and Wall Street Journal. And
why don't I see if I can find that next week? It might be worth a few minutes talking about, right?
It is what they're doing, yeah. Because I actually meant to bring this up a few weeks ago, and I forgot all about it till the letter. That's why we have great listeners.
Thanks for that email, Will, and I'll see if I can track down that article on the Giants pitching in the Wall Street Journal, and we'll go from there. But we appreciate all your letters, and that's another thoughtful one from Will, so appreciate that. I think we're good, right, Terry? Anything else you want to get into here?
That is it for me.
All right. Well, we'll see how the Cavs do this weekend, everybody. Again, if you want to hit us with thoughts, questions, comments, you can hit us with those by email, sports@cleveland.com, and we will try and get those on an upcoming podcast. Enjoy your sports weekend, and we will talk to you next week on Terry's Talkin'.